The Beretta M9A3 versus the Glock G19X. Let's check it out. Because of the recent U.S. military decision to go with the SIG P320 for their new M17 pistol and to replace the Beretta M9, there have been a lot of guns that were submitted to the MSH trials that didn't make it but yet have been offered to the civilian market. Two of those pistols are the Beretta M9A3 and also the Glock G19X. These are two handguns that I recently reviewed, and so I just thought we'd do a head-to-head comparison, looking at a lot of the details and going into some of the features. Now, there's a lot of similarities to these pistols, but there are a lot more differences. Now, I was fortunate enough to be invited down to Glock for the Glock Summit when they introduced the Glock G19X. And I really appreciate Glock for inviting me. I have no affiliation with Glock. They didn't pay me or anything. In fact, I'm buying this pistol after the T&E is done. And then Nate at GunProDeals sent the Beretta M9A3, and it was a perfect storm between these two. I was really glad to get both of them. Now let's talk about the similarities of these two pistols to get things started. Both of them were entered into the modular handgun system trials. Both of them lost. Now, Glock was number 2 in the lineup, and a lot of argument has been made that the only reason Glock was beat out by the SIG P320 was because of price. SIG came in considerably less on price, but that's just speculation. Now, the Beretta M9A3 was not even considered. In fact, they wouldn't even request samples. They didn't even look at it. They had their mindset on really a polymer framed striker fire pistol. Now, they're both 9mm, even though the military trials did not call for that. They are both a kind of a sand color or an FDE color, which is one thing that the military asked for, was to have kind of a subdued color that was non-reflective. They both have 17+1 magazines. We'll get into a little bit of some differences with that in a second. They both have accessory rails. They both have night sights. They both have a lanyard loop, and they both are suppressor adaptable. Now, the Beretta M9A3 has a threaded barrel, and so it's immediately adaptable. The Glock, of course, threaded barrels can be easily installed, and these are used that way, so that's not really that big of a deal. But other than that, those are pretty much the basic similarities between the two pistols. Now, we're going to talk about differences, and of course, first thing we're going to do is to make sure that the guns are safe, drop the magazine, check to make sure the chamber is empty, and we're going to do so on the Glock, and it is. Now, one of the big design differences between the two pistols is that the Glock is striker fire. The Beretta is double action, single action, hammer fired. And one of the big things about that is with a Glock being striker fired, from the first round all the way to the last round, it's very consistent. The triggers are not that great, but they're fairly short. And so that's a big difference between a double action, single action, which here, let's just say that we're in double action, the hammer's down. When we pull the trigger, it's a long, heavy trigger pull, and then it fires. Subsequent shots, though, the hammer will be in the rear position. So that first shot is a little bit of a doozy, and then the rest of them are in the single action mode. One thing too is you have a decocker right here on the Beretta, and then it's in safe mode. It just kills the trigger. To disengage the safety, you have to click it up. Now, there is what they call the G model, which when you decock, it'll snap back. So it's never really on safe. It's more like a double action revolver. On the G19, as far as the original submission to the MHS trials, they did install a frame-mounted safety, but on the G19, the safety is gone like your traditional Glock pistols. So as far as these two pistols are concerned, you have a decocker safety, you have only an internal and 3 internal safeties here. Another big difference is you have a polymer frame versus an aluminum alloy frame. The double action, single action aluminum alloy frame was very popular in the 70s and 80s. About the time Glock came out, kind of took the world by storm with the polymer frames, and now you're seeing a lot of polymer frame pistols. You still occasionally see some of the double action, single action pistols like the Rec Zero. That's a fairly new offering here in the US, and a lot of others. But typically you're finding that a lot of companies are going with the striker fire. One big thing about that is it's a lot cheaper to produce a striker fire pistol than it is a double single action semi-automatic. I mean, it's just considerably less. So a lot of the polymer frame striker fire pistols had a leg up on the Beretta just because of that. Now, one big difference too is the design of the slide. If you'll notice that the Beretta has an open slide design, and that just makes it really easy, very reliable design. Keeps from stovepipes happening. Here with the Glock, it's closed in your traditional style. There are good and bad points there, but both of these guns either way are very reliable. Now, according to the MHS trials, one of the prerequisites was to have an ambidextrous pistol. With the Beretta, you have your ambidextrous decocker or safety, but that's pretty much it. With the Glock, you had a ambidextrous slide release, as you can see here. In fact, the safety was also ambidextrous, and with both pistols, the safety is on the left side, which is for right-handed shooters, but both can be switched to the other side without too much trouble. Now, one of the next big differences is grips. For one thing, you've got a straight back grip, which is new. It's the Vertex style from Beretta. It makes that straight instead of this little hump that comes here, and then it has some really thin grip. So this really brought the grip down on the Beretta. Honestly, I love the grip. If for no other reason, as far as the 92 or the M9 type handgun, the grip on this is just fantastic. But on the Glock, it has the standard hump right here toward the back, and that's a little bit different if you're used to shooting 1911s or this straight angle. And so, but for me, I've shot them for so many years, I'm very used to it. Now, this does not have any grip extensions on here, and that's one of the things, or back straps. One of the things that was important and really called for the modularity was to have grip options. Now, with the Beretta, we have one of the Hogue overmold wraparound grips. Once you attach this grip, it actually adds that hump back to the grip. So guys with larger hands that really need a little more than what we have here will find a lot of comfort with this larger grip. So the Beretta has 2 different grip options, while the Glock has the existing grip, and then we have 4 more options. So you've got 4 more possibilities, and then of course you see that you do have a beaver tail option here and here. Now the Beretta already has the beaver tail, and so that kind of negates that. But here we have the small on the gun, and then medium and large, and then medium and large. So there's a lot of variations that you can do with the Glock pistol. With the Beretta, you just have 2 options. Another difference is the coatings on the slide. Now the Glock has one of the N PVD coatings that's new from Glock, and this is actually impregnates the metal. It's very durable. In fact, Glock says that it's even better than their original Tenifer type slides that they were, or the finish they were putting on their slides. And it does come in this kind of a coyote or FDE color. With the Beretta, we have a Cerakote slide and Cerakote barrel. And so, but the MPV coating that's on the frame is really nice, and anodizes the frame. It's a very beautiful color. Also, the magazines were treated in that as well, and this meant that they were anti-sand or sand resistant. And so it gives it a very slick finish to it and makes it really nice. And one of the things about the Beretta when I first got it, it was a little bit tough right here to bring the slide back, which is typically very smooth for Beretta. But that had a lot to do with the Cerakote that had been applied. Once I shot about 500 rounds through this pistol, and ever since then it's just been a really smooth, easy to pull back. And so that is one thing, the slide action on the Beretta is super slick. But on the Glock, it's just your standard Glock pullback. It's not super slick, but it's not very difficult to do. But really, to be honest with you, the Beretta has the smooth action down. I mean, this is a slick pistol, much more than the Glock. Another big difference is size of the two pistols. The Beretta is considerably larger than the G19X. And as far as size comparison, we're going to place one on top of the other. The Beretta comes down just a touch at the grip and definitely quite a bit more toward the front. And really, if you go all the way back to the beaver tail, that's about 2-inch difference with the slide, including the barrel. The Glock has a pretty low bore axis, whereas the Beretta has a pretty high bore axis, including the sight. A big similarity is the night sights. Both are steel night sights, both are tritium, and it is a 3-dot night sight, so you're definitely getting the advantage of that. Now the weight between the two pistols, the Beretta 2.08 pounds, the Glock 1 pound 8.8 ounces. And that's just under a half a pound difference between the Glock G19X and the Beretta M9A3. Now while you get 3 magazines with each of the pistols, with the Glock it comes with a 17 round, but it comes with 2 additional 19 round magazines. And so that's going to give you some advantage with the magazines. Now with Berettas, you can get 20 round magazines all day long. It's not a big deal, but you're not necessarily going to get this really nice PVD coating on it. But you do get 3 magazines with each pistol. I thank PVD Munitions for supplying the 115 grain 9mm full metal jacket ammo. You get a 5% discount using Suit00 on the PVD Munitions website. And also this Lula loader comes in handy while loading these massive magazines. Now at the range, shooting these guns side by side, the Beretta definitely had a little more weight to it, a little longer barrel, a little longer sight radius. It's a very smooth shooting gun already. I mean, the slide action on the Beretta M9 was already very sweet. With the Glock, it's a little bit shorter, it's a lighter pistol, and to be honest with you, the muzzle flip was just a little bit more than the Beretta. But you're definitely getting about that half-pound lighter weight to this pistol to the Glock. And so that makes a big difference. As far as shootability, the Glocks, I've been shooting them for years, and they're great handguns. The one thing about the G19X is it has a totally different feel. It's called a crossover with the G19 slide and the G17 frame, but it gave it a totally different feel at the range, just the way it shot. And personally, I really liked it. But the Beretta was definitely smoother. It was easier to get follow-up shots. One thing that I do like about the Glock over the Beretta is just the consistency. From the first trigger pull to the last, it's always the same with that striker fire. With the double single action, of course that first double action trigger pull is long and a little bit heavier, and then with the single action, which is smooth, but there's a definite difference between the two. And those first seconds can really make a difference. Now we're going to disassemble, and I'm just going to do a quick disassembly, check to make sure the gun is unloaded, pull the trigger, pull back a little bit, and then bring those tabs down. And here we have the gun disassembled. Very simple design. With the Beretta, drop it. At the back here we have a little button, just push it and then bring the lever down, and no pull of the trigger. Pull out your recoil spring and guide rod and your barrel. Now the Beretta barrel on top, you see this locking lug system, keeps the barrel flat. Here with the Glock barrel, it's actually one of the tilt designs, which it tilts. This stays in the fixed position. The Beretta recoil spring is polymer with just a single spring. Here with the G19X, we have a captive guide rod and we have a dual recoil spring. And then here we see the slides, definitely the open slide, but longer, heavier, and then the Glock slide. And then here we have the Glock frame, which is polymer. We have the Beretta, which is of course aluminum alloy, and a lot of internal differences. We're not going to get into all of it, but you can see. Now to give you an idea of the different boxes, of course we have the Glock box, and this is the standard box, but it does come in this FDE color, which is very unique. It's the first time they've ever done anything other than black. Here we have the Beretta box. We have an outer box, and then we have the inner box, which this is like an ammo can, and this is a really cool design. Now to give you an idea, we'll just open it up. Here the pistol comes in a closed foam padding. It's really secure. You got your 2 magazines, you've got your grip and your lock and all the different things. It does have a foam piece to keep this protected, and you do have an O-ring seal. So this is a pretty solid system, way to store your pistol. Here with the Glock box, open it up, just like normal with the Glock, but it's still a pretty cool deal. And of course with the extra magazine, with all the pieces in here, it's a little bit tight, but definitely a neat little system. As far as price goes, we've got a pretty large difference. We have the Beretta M9A3 retailing for around the $1,000 mark. Then we have the Glock G19X, which the retail price is $749. That's a $250 difference. Now to give you more of a realistic price on GunProDeals, the Beretta M9A3 was running $862. And so that gives you an idea of where the Glock G19 may come into play. At this point right now, they still haven't been released. So we're probably though looking at about $650, something like that is what I would guess. But that remains to be seen. As far as pros and cons of these two pistols, number one, these pistols are world class. They've been proven, whether it's a lot of law enforcement and special forces or military combat use, and just also police units all over the world have used the Beretta. From the 92 all the way up to the M9. So even the Marine Corps is still using the M9 Beretta. So both of these pistols are solid. Really the difference, big time difference, is just the design of the pistols. But also the weight of the Beretta, again, is about a ½ pound more than your Glock, but you have a longer sight radius. It's a very smooth action. Of course, Beretta's, top notch, a lot of quality. The Glock is very utilitarian. It's very simple parts. Of course, the reliability is just well known. I mean, I've always called the Glock the AK-47 of the handgun world. And, they're just both uber reliable. Of course, out of the box, you're going to get some advantage with the 2 19-round magazines, which makes it nice. The consistent trigger pull, if you like the external safety, you've got it here. Me personally, I am not a big fan of the decocker and then having to bring it back up. I mean, that's just me, and I don't really care for that. But the G model, or you can get one of the G model decockers that'll just snap back, and this one's going to get that as soon as I get one in. The finishes on here are excellent. I will say, though, that the Glock in PVD coating is superior to the Cerakote, just because it actually treats the metal. Even though Cerakote is very durable and you're going to get tons of life out of it, the Glock treatment is superior. Of course, the low bore axis on the Glock to me is an advantage, but I shoot the Beretta just as well. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the way the barrel stays completely straight when it comes back. The Glock, not so much. It does cant up somewhat, which is typical for most of your polymer striker fire pistols. So, this gives you a little advantage on accuracy as far as theoretically. And the Berettas are really accurate. Of course, the Glock has the new Marksman barrel, which is an enhanced hexagonal barrel system. It's the same as the traditional Glock barrels. It's just that the grooves have been redefined and makes it a little more accurate. It was one of the things that the Army required, was to get consistent shots at 50 meters on a 4-inch target. That's one of the reasons why Glock went ahead and upped their potential accuracy. Plus, they crowned the barrel. With the Beretta, you already get a threaded barrel, so that's definitely an advantage, which you don't have with the Glock. Both have night sights, so that's good to go as well. And as we discussed, the price definitely comes into play. Whereas your Beretta is running about $1,000 manufacturer suggested retail, your Glock's coming in at $749 retail. So that's a pretty significant difference. But I really think that both of these pistols are going to be limited run pistols. I don't really see them in the long term staying on either the Beretta or the Glock lineup for a long time. And of course, I may be wrong about that, but that's one thing. I think that both of these pistols were designed just to fill a need for those who are wanting some of the military contract pistols that were coming out. Now, I really appreciate Glock for having me down for the Glock Summit, where they introduced the Glock G19X. And also the other two new Gen 5 pistols. It was a great experience and gave me a lot of inside information on what the G19 is all about. But also I want to thank Nate at GunProDeals for sending the Beretta M9A3 for doing a test and evaluation, and it really allowed me to kind of bring these two together. And you can check out the GunProDeals website. It's a great place for really good prices, and I'm sure that you can find the Glock G19 there as well. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. Because the recent and they chose the SIG P226, and they chose the MH. Here with the Glock box, do a head-to-head comparison between these two pistols.